Imagine a boy of only 5 years old sitting at a great wooden harpsichord. His small feet cannot reach the floor. His fingers can barely cover the keys. But the music he is playing is music he wrote himself. By the time he was 6, this boy was playing for emperors and kings. By the time he was 12, he had written his first opera. He would die before his 36th birthday, and his music, written over 250 years ago, is still played every single day, somewhere in the world. His name was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and this is his story. Mozart was born on the 27th of January 1756 in the small Austrian city of Salzburg. His family lived on the 3rd floor of a tall yellow house on the Getreidegasse. His father, Leopold, was a serious man, a violinist, a composer, a music teacher. Leopold believed his children were not ordinary children. He believed they were gifts from God. Wolfgang had an older sister named Maria Anna. The family called her Nannel. By the time Nannel was 7, she could play the harpsichord as well as a grown adult. Little Wolfgang would sit on a small stool and watch her play. He was only 3 years old. He could not read words yet, but he could already remember whole pieces of music after hearing them only once. When he was 4, Wolfgang began to climb up onto the harpsichord bench by himself. He picked out melodies, he copied his sister, he invented his own. One evening, Leopold found a piece of paper on the floor full of strange marks. He realized it was music. His 5-year-old son had written it. That little piece is still in libraries today. It is the first thing Mozart ever composed. Leopold could not keep this secret. He packed his family into a carriage and traveled to Vienna, to the great imperial palace of Schönbrunn. In October 1762, when Wolfgang was 6 and Nannel was 11, the 2 children performed for the Empress Maria Theresa herself. The room was full of dukes, princes, and ambassadors. Everyone watched the small boy in his fine red coat. He played pieces no child should be able to play. He played one melody with a cloth over the keys, so he could not see them. He played another with one finger. When he finished, Wolfgang ran across the polished marble floor, jumped up into the Empress's lap, and kissed her face. The court gasped. The Empress laughed and gave him a small purple coat made for one of her own sons. He was a child. He had no idea he had just charmed the most powerful woman in Europe. Leopold saw an opportunity. Within months, the whole family was on the road again. This time the tour would last 3.5 years. They traveled to Munich, then Paris. Wolfgang, now 7, played for King Louis XV at Versailles. They crossed the sea to London. Wolfgang played for King George III. He met the great composer Johann Christian Bach, who lifted the little boy onto his lap and played duets with him on the harpsichord. It was not all glory. Wolfgang fell ill many times on the journey. He nearly died of typhus in Holland. Yet between fevers, he kept composing. By the age of 9, he had written his first symphony. When the family finally returned to Salzburg in 1766, Wolfgang was 10 years old. He had performed for half the kings of Europe. He had written music that grown men could not write, and his father had only just begun. At 11, Wolfgang wrote his first opera. It was performed in front of the Archbishop of Salzburg, who refused to believe such music could come from a child. He locked Wolfgang in a room for a week, with only paper and a piano. By the end of the week, Wolfgang had written another full piece, exactly as good as the first. At 14, Leopold took him to Italy. In Rome, the family visited the Sistine Chapel during Holy Week. They heard a sacred piece called the Miserere, a piece the Pope had forbidden anyone to write down or take from the chapel. Wolfgang listened to it once, then he went back to the inn that evening and wrote the entire piece from memory. The Pope was so impressed, he gave the boy a knighthood instead of punishing him. By his early 20s, Wolfgang had written hundreds of pieces. He was famous across Europe. But fame did not make him rich, and it did not make his father proud. In 1781, when Wolfgang was 25, he had a great argument with his employer, the Archbishop of Salzburg. He was fired, literally kicked out by the Archbishop's foot. He moved to Vienna and decided to live as a free musician. No master, no salary, no safety. The next year, he married a young singer named Constanze Weber. They were poor but in love. Together they had 6 children. Only 2 survived to adulthood. In Vienna between 1782 and 1791, Wolfgang wrote the music the world would never forget. The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni, The Magic Flute, symphonies that still make grown men cry today. But the money came and went. He earned huge sums and spent them faster. He gave concerts in his own home. He taught wealthy students. He borrowed from friends. He wrote letters begging for help. He never stopped composing, even on the worst days. In the summer of 1791, a strange man came to Mozart's door, dressed entirely in grey. He spoke quietly. He asked Mozart to write a requiem, a piece of music for the dead. He paid in advance and refused to give his name. Mozart became convinced the stranger was a messenger of death, that the requiem was for himself. He worked on it day and night, even as his body grew weaker. On the night of the 4th of December, 1791, Mozart sat up in bed and tried to teach his friends how to finish the requiem. He sang the alto line. He cried. By 2 in the morning, he was gone. He was 35 years old. It was raining. There was almost no money. Constanze could not afford a proper funeral. Mozart was buried in an unmarked grave on the edge of Vienna. Nobody knows the exact spot today. 250 years later, his music plays in every concert hall, every cinema, every quiet evening. Children learn his name before they learn most others. People who cannot read a word of his language know his melodies by heart. The boy who climbed onto an empress's lap, who wrote his first piece at 5, who could remember a melody after hearing it once, gave the world a gift that has not faded in 2.5 centuries. If this story warmed your evening, subscribe to Lamplight English. Every Tuesday and Friday, a new chapter, told slowly, told clearly, told by Lamplight. Until next time.